Greetings, Rebel fans. My name is Jason Kelly. This is the Let's Run podcast. I want to welcome you all to the show today. We are celebrating a great victory against the University of Reno. We kept the cannon red. It's great times ahead. And today we are, I'm actually honored and very happy to have on a very special guest. This is Ryan from the Rebellion podcast. I love that other people are making UNLV content. When I started the podcast, I had a goal to kind of proliferate and kind of give other people chances to listen to things that weren't, like Steve Cofield and the radio in Vegas. So I'm glad that we have other people doing stuff. I will link everything with his podcast in the description of this show. And I hope you guys all will go over and give him a follow because it's just a really good time to be a Rebel fan. And I'm happy that we have somebody else on to talk about this incredible week that we have. And the title of this podcast I have, is this the biggest weekend for UNLV sports since the year 1990? The biggest week. And actually, you could probably say 1991. Obviously, I'm being a little, generous because we did go to the Final Four in 1991 as well, infamously, as people remember, even though I was not alive at that time. Very sadly. The height of my Rebel basketball life was 2011 with beating North Carolina. So I don't have the great memories of the 90s like other people do. But thanks for coming on, Ryan. How you doing today?
I'm good. Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it's just it's a very fun time to be a Rebel football fan right now. Born and raised in Vegas my whole life, going to games, and we've never been good. So getting to experience some success and big crowds and actually feeling like we're a real football school now, it's been pretty awesome. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I started a podcast simply because I love talking UNLV sports. And the people in my life that I'm closest to, just don't care as much as I do. So I don't have a lot of people I could talk about it with as much. So I was like, I'll just start recording on a microphone and talking about whatever I want to talk about. And so that's kind of how I got started. But yeah, I'm appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, UNLV football, even just 2 years ago, and especially with UNLV basketball struggling too. UNLV sports, just the media economy around UNLV sports was so dire for so long. All we basically had was Mike Ramala's crappy reporting in the Las Vegas Sun. That's like all we had. And so it's good to see Barry Odom coming. And I think with Allegiant Stadium, I don't think football's, maybe it won't be as high as it is right now. But even if Barry leaves, I don't see UNLV football returning to the dregs of college sports. So I will go ahead and recap the Reno game a little bit. And I'm going to mute you just while I do this real quick, just so we can go through the stats. So Reno, we won 38-14. Kind of a little disappointing there at the end. We had a Kylan James fumble. It should have been 45-7, honestly. That would have been nice. But 38-14, we still covered. Hodge Malik Williams finished with 168 yards passing. A very good game for him. I believe he also had a rushing touchdown as well. A great fake out, 14-21, 2 touchdowns. Jet Thomas has really kind of blossomed into the back that we all knew he was going to be. 135 yards, 15 carries, 1 touchdown. Receiving yards, it was actually Jacob DeJesus who led the Rebels in receiving yards. Really great performance from him. Ricky White had an okay game as well. I mean, I'd like to see Ricky get a little bit more in terms of targets, but Ricky did get 5 receptions for 55 yards, very nearly another blocked punt, and he did also catch a touchdown, so that's great for him. Kaleo Balangai had a couple of receptions for 16 yards and a touchdown. He did his patented play where on the goal line where we just basically get a touchdown every time, and then they had a nice little out route for him. Kaleo remains one of our best options in the end zone. Jet Elad had a pretty good game. Jackson Woodard had an outstanding game, including 5 solo tackles. But Jet Elad and Tony Grimes had a couple of sacks that were unbelievable. Just the pressure they were getting on the quarterback. I thought the defense played a solid game after that first drive where Reno kind of got a free play. It's 3rd and 14, and they managed to scoop by a first down, and then there was a blown coverage and they got a touchdown. But besides that, I mean, this Rebel team essentially held Reno to 7 points for the whole game, and could have scored more had they been a little bit more aggressive in their own play calling. Attendance for the game, 40,000. It was a great environment, a great atmosphere, and it just made me proud to be a Rebel fan. So Ryan, I wanted to get your kind of thoughts on the game, how you felt about the performance, and just how did it feel to keep the cannon red, and what was the environment like inside of Allegiant Stadium?
Coming into the game, I think if I were going as a neutral fan, I would have been like, not nervous at all. Like UNLV is going to win this game easy. There's nothing to worry about. But because it's Reno, because everything that was at stake, I was pretty nervous about this game. But it was pretty clear right from the start of the game that we're so much better than them. We pretty much did everything we wanted in that game for the most part. And like you said, it wasn't that fumble at the end of the game, we would have had 45 points. So it really was the butt whooping that I was hoping for. And it was a blast. The atmosphere is great. People are having so much fun. The energy, excitement surrounding this team is, it's something I never expected to experience as a fan. And, whatever happens at this point, honestly, obviously I want to beat Boise more than anything. And I'm just so proud of this team. I love this team so much. And I've never been, I don't think I've been this excited for a team in a really long time. But yeah, it was a great experience last night. And I'm still on a high from that game.
Yeah, when I was walking around the stadium, like I had 7 family members with me. I decided to bring as many people as I could to this game because I was like, you guys are going to love this. It's going to be great. And as we were walking in, there was just an energy to the arena where I was kind of nervous like you going into the game. But as I walked into Allegiant Stadium and as I, was going up, I sat in the 200s just so we would all be able to sit together. And as I was just like in the stadium, I felt a sense of confidence, and every piece of worry that I had was just gone instantly. I was worried the whole week going up to the game. You think, oh, rivalry game. But as I saw the seniors being honored, and I looked at Jackson Woodard and Ricky White and Hodge Blake Williams and the crowd and the environment, I was like, there's no way we're losing to these morons from Reno. Like, we're gonna kill them. And so that's how I felt.
Yeah, it was the same for me. Like once you're actually there and everything started playing out, I still like, there's always going to be nerves. I can't relax at these games. I want to get a big lead. Like once we got to like 31, I was like, okay, I think I can relax now. But no, I've always hated Reno. So it was just awesome feeling, awesome experience. So.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to get your thoughts. We're going to talk football first a little bit and the week ahead. How are you feeling about Boise? I personally will be picking the Rebels to win this game. I did not pick us to win our home game against Boise, but I feel a level of confidence for this team. And could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong. But I feel like I feel confident in the Rebels this week. How are you feeling? Where do you think the guys are mentally? And how do you think they're going to go about preparing for this Boise game? And how confident are you?
I'm actually more confident than I was the last time we played them, despite the fact that we're on the road. Boise's obviously a great team with great players. I think they've struggled a little bit lately. They haven't looked as dominant maybe as they were earlier in the season. We're at our peak right now. I think we're going to be very prepared for that game. I think we're gonna give them everything we got, and it's going to take a lot for them to beat us. They're going to have to play a great game to beat us because we're a pretty awesome football team right now. So I trust the coaching staff. I trust our seniors that, they're going to go out there and they're going to get the job done. So my gut feeling is that we're going to win this game, which scares me because a lot of times it goes, the opposite of what my gut feeling is. But, like I said, regardless of what happens, this just a phenomenal team, phenomenal season.
Yeah, so we opened up this game as like a 6.5 point underdog, from what I saw from certain sports books. In less than 24 hours, it was all the way down to 3.5, which was the exact same line that Boise had when they came and played us in Vegas. So I think, I think, I was thinking about this, having Allegiant Stadium is certainly a big asset, and it's so much better than Sam Boyd. Although I have so many fond memories as a high schooler and a middle schooler running around the bottom of Sam Boyd Stadium and not paying attention to the game at all because Nick Sherry just threw his 4th interception, or one of those obscure Rebel quarterbacks. But I think Allegiant almost brings teams up to play to a level sometimes. A lot of times this is the first time these guys are playing in an NFL stadium. And I'm not saying that means that they'll play any worse in their home stadium, but I don't think home court or home field advantage means anything in this game. Do you?
No, I think more so maybe in basketball for sure, but clearly our Rebels aren't that afraid of opposing teams' home crowd, as we're 6-0 on the road. But I agree. I agree with you. I think other teams get excited to play in Allegiant Stadium, and I don't think they're afraid of the big lights, and in a lot of ways they might even play better. So the blue field, the freezing cold weather, I'm not worried about it. I think we're going to get the job done.
Yeah, I think, specifically our rushing attack has been pretty solid. We've basically kind of become triple option with Ricky and Jacob DeJesus. Like that's kind of what our team has turned into as this season's gone on. Casey Kane isn't playing anymore. We didn't have a couple of our bigger receiver options are dealing with injuries. And so we've kind of become a kind of a hard-nosed running team. So obviously I think the O-line is going to have to play well to beat a team like Boise. And I know that, Boise fans are certainly. I lived in Boise, as I always say. I lived in Boise. I was a Boise fan growing up because UNLV was so bad. I don't know that I didn't love UNLV too, but I always supported. I was in high school when Boise State was going to Fiesta Bowls. So it was a team that I could latch onto that wasn't BYU. Even because I went to BYU, my whole family went to BYU, but I always liked supporting teams that weren't BYU just because real Mormons are rebels, as we always used to say. And so I get a sense of very like I wouldn't call them scared, but I don't think Boise State fans or the Boise State team is going to be underestimating the Rebels coming into this matchup. I mean, I don't think you would either, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I definitely think we've earned the respect of any opponent we play at this point. And I've actually Boise State played against UNR a few weeks ago, and I was at that game because I have some friends that live there. So it was just a completely different experience from Allegiant Stadium. Just everything about it was so different. And
So go ahead. Like, what was Albertsons, because they play in Albertson Stadium? What was that like? Like, what was your and what were the Boise fans like? What was the environment like? How did you feel? Were you wearing Rebel gear or anything?
I wasn't. I had on a hat that had UNLV on it, but I didn't get any comments or anything. So it was just so different in so many ways. But the Boise fans were really cool. Everyone was really nice, really friendly. The whole setup was just extremely different. Like I said, from Allegiant. I'm spoiled going to Allegiant Stadium. Like this, the way it was set up, where we sat was like behind the end zone because we had two people with us that were in a wheelchair. So we were in the wheelchair seating. So we had really good seats, but there was no chairs for me to sit in. So I was like leaning down, and security's like yelling at me to get to my seat. I'm like, I don't have a seat. And just the way it was set up, like we got blocked. We weren't able to leave. So we're like sitting there in the cold. It was just so much different from what I'm used to, but it had such a college feel to it, right? There's just thousands and thousands of students there. I mean, I was like, this is what college football actually is like, right? This is what a college football environment, this is what I think of, right? And like I said, just Allegiant is just so much different from what I think other college fans experience. But I loved it though, and I'm excited to watch our Rebels play and win there on Friday.
Do you think that the Rebels, when I was on one of the biggest Boise State content creators. I'll have him on this week again to our podcast. But like, do you think that how much should the Rebels sell out to stop Ashton Genty? Because last time it felt like we abandoned their quarterback to try and stop Genty. And that maybe worked a little bit. I mean, obviously Genty had one of his weaker games of the year. We did better against Ashton Genty than Oregon did, for example. But what we did was we left Boise State's quarterback, Maddox Madsen, to kind of roam free. I mean, he had that 80-yard run in the first quarter, and he really kind of sliced and diced us a little bit. And he outplayed Hodge, which I think was the main reason why we lost that game, is that Hodge didn't play as well as their quarterback. So what's your impressions of Boise State's offense, their quarterback? What do you think the Rebels' approach should be? And how do you feel about trying to stop, the Ashton Genty Heisman campaign once and for all?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we did a great job against him. I think we held him to an average of, I think it was like 3.7 yards per carry. If you would have told me that before the game, I would have thought, for sure we win. But obviously they have other weapons. They have other talented players. They stepped up. As far as the game plan goes, I can't really say. They clearly they did a great job against Genty the first time. So if we do that again and then maybe tighten some things up, and as far as not letting the quarterback go off on us again. I trust Odom that he's gonna come up with something. So I think it's just clear we can't let Genty run all over us. But then again, we can't put too much effort into that it takes away from other areas. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would just throw in there that like Ashton Genty will beat you if you let him. Maddox Matson could beat you, and there's a good chance he will beat you. So what I would do, just for a little preview X's and O's, is I would tell Jackson to I think I trust Woodard enough not to just be spying Genty. I think he can watch Madsen a little bit. I would sit him down, Mike, get sure our defensive coordinator, and have him sit down and have him and the rest of the defense have some sort of communication where somebody's watching their quarterback, because Madsen can run, he can throw, and Genty should be the focus. But I think we were a little too one-dimensional in our defensive scheme that first game. I again think that we can do it. I think that we can. I think that we can beat this Boise State team. I think that we will. I don't think anybody outside of Las Vegas is going to have that opinion, and I don't blame them either, because UNLV is since Boise State joined the Mountain West, we've never been close to beating them besides this last game that we had. So I feel good. I think it's going to mean a lot for the program, and I hope Barry Odom doesn't leave this year. But I'm just kind of living the moment, and that's how I feel about it. Do you have any other thoughts about where Barry is right now and him as a coach? Are you just kind of trying to live in the moment, or are you worried about other? I saw that West Virginia became open as a job today, and North Carolina is open, and that anxiety is always going to be there, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm kind of the same with you. Where my mindset is right now is, even if Odom does leave, I'm so happy of what he brought to us. Just getting this experience, having a great football team, a awesome product put on the field to rally the city around. It's been depressing for so long now, ever since UNLV basketball fell off the face of the earth, and then to see football do this is, I'm always going to love Barry Odom. My gut is we're going to figure out a way to keep him, but if we don't, there's a lot of money will be thrown at him, obviously. Again, there'll be no ill will towards him whatsoever. He's just, it's unbelievable what he's done, and I'm always going to love the guy for that.
Yeah, I'll just say before we move on to a darker topic in basketball, I'll just say that the only job that really scares me for Barry Odom, and it's not that there aren't other jobs that will come open, like Florida could come open, or one of those other blue blood jobs could come open, but the Arkansas job is the one that I think he would leave us for. He was their defensive coordinator. Sam Pittman's an old guy, their head coach. I think he's going to hang on as their head coach for at least another year. But whatever happens with Barry Odom, I hope our buyout is really high with him. And I hope that we offer him, I think that $4 to $5 million range. I think that's where it should start with him, because I think that's the kind of value he brings to this program. We're gonna lose Brennan. If Odom's gonna leave, this year wouldn't be the worst year for him to go, because at least I would just hire Brennan the next day. I would just hire our offensive coordinator the next day. But it's good times for UNLV football. There's a lot to be grateful for. It's a legit program, and I don't think that it's going to return to the absolute bottom of the barrel. It may not be as high as it is right now, but with Allegiant Stadium and this positive momentum, I have confidence in our facilities. As long as we don't hire idiots like Marcus Arroyo, I have confidence that we can be a good program. A program that I do not have as much confidence in, speaking of confidence, is UNLV basketball. So I don't know about you, but I mean, this Rebel basketball program was the first kind of love of my sports life. It's the first thing that introduced me to being a fan of something. And because of that, I'm a lifelong fan. We could have Marvin Menzies for 80 years and I'd still be a fan. That would be a tough 80 years, and I think he'd be 190 by the time he, retired. But I love UNLV basketball, and I don't love where it is right now. And, we don't have a bad loss yet. None of the losses that we have are truly horrendous. That performance against Mississippi State really was. It was a terrible performance against them. But how are you feeling about the state of the program right now? Do you think there's a chance, like last year, that we could turn it around against Creighton? How are you feeling?
Honestly, a little embarrassed, and I'll tell you why. I started my podcast with this mindset of, I think we're going to have a good team this year. I think we're going to make the NCAA tournament. In real life, I was a little more skeptical than I come across on the podcast. That was just a decision I made. I was going to be like, very like, this is how I feel. This is what's going to happen. Like, and I knew I was taking a risk, right? I just was looking at the players that we had come in, and I thought the fit was really well. I thought like some of the weaknesses we had the previous season we addressed, and I'm so high on Deon Thomas. I'm like, I just unbelievably high on him. So I thought like, okay, this is going to be our year. This is going to be our year. So I'm going to put this podcast out there. I released an episode, top 10 reasons why we're going to make the NCAA tournament this year. And, 7 games into the season, or 6, or however many games we played, as of right now, I'm wrong. This team isn't good. At least not by the standards that I was hyping them up as. But we've had a lot of injuries. I think we've shown glimpses of that we can be pretty good, but we have a long ways to go. And like you said, we technically don't have a bad loss in terms of resume, right? So if we're going to turn it around, it's got to be now, because if not, that bad loss is happening. The good news is we have a lot of good opponents coming up, so we have a chance to really get some good wins and turn this thing around. Like you said, we did that last year. I thought the team was pretty darn good at the end of the season last year. I know other people thought we got lucky with our schedule. I think that's downplaying a little bit how much we improved as the year went on. But yeah, all I have to say is I was expecting to look better at this point. Obviously, not having our full roster, having injured players it's very unlucky for Kevin. The fact of the matter is, unless something changes drastically and we get a lot better quick, we'll have a new coach next year. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, what I'll say about basketball specifically is like, if we had one of the coaches here sitting next to us, they would say, "Hey, we're down 2 starters and 3 rotation players. We haven't lost, like we don't have a Southern loss like we did last year. The team took care of business. I was worried they were going to lose that New Mexico State game. I was proud of them for taking. I mean, like I was a little disappointed in the rebounding effort, and that obviously showed up down in that tournament in Arizona too, as a huge issue. But like the team doesn't have a Southern LMU type loss. Like it hasn't been completely buried yet, but you have to feel like Kevin Kruger's sitting there saying, how am I going to do this year? This is year 4, bud. I mean, like Bryce Hamilton is not coming out of that gate to save you. Elijah Harkless is not coming out of that gate to save you. You have Deaton Thomas or DJ Thomas right now, but he can't do it alone. He's a small guard. He's not a big player. And small guards in college basketball, they're pivotal. You have to have one that's good. Small guards dominate the NCAA tournament, but the rest of the roster has to be a support around. You and I had both hoped in the preseason is if Rob Whaley comes back and he's healthy, and all of a sudden we have this 2-headed behemoth rebounding machine down low between Bear Cherry and Rob Whaley. And that's something that could happen. Rob's dealing with a lower back injury. They're taking pretty drastic steps to try and get him on the court. But what I would say is I'm disappointed in the level of conditioning of the players. I think Rob looks a little big. I think Barrett looks a little big. The only 2 guys that I say don't look that look really good, I would say, are Jalen Hill. I think he looks a lot better, and DJ has put on some weight and muscle. But I just don't see this team being good unless it gets healthy, and I don't know that they're going to get healthy, and that worries me a lot.
Yeah, and part of being successful in college basketball is you need a little bit of luck. Unfortunately, when you're on the hot seat, you're not going to be given that. Oh well, he had to deal with injuries this year, so we're going to give him more time. Yeah, it's win now or sorry. We're going to be looking for a new coach. I agree. I honestly thought that having in the front court Bear Cherry and Rob Whaley, I thought that was a massive front court that combines to over 500 pounds. I thought we could really just beat on people down low. We haven't got to see what that would look like yet. Jaden Henley, he's a big, athletic, talented dude. He has great size. He's someone that I personally was higher on than other people coming in. I saw a lot of talent in him. I saw a lot from watching his game film. I think we just haven't found our identity yet. It just seems like guys are still trying to figure out their roles, and not knowing when to shoot, when not to shoot, and coming up with something that works well together. And I don't know. I see something in Kevin Kruger similar to Dave Rice in the sense of like, I don't think he knows how to get the most out of his players. I just think the guys look bored out there. They don't, because I've overheard players when they were playing for Dave Rice talking about him like that they're not intimidated by him. You know, they don't really respect him that much. This was all stuff that I've heard directly from the players. And you're never going to be successful if that's the case. All right. So, and unfortunately, I'm seeing similarities with Kevin. I do think he's very smart, X's and O's wise. I think he's a very smart coach. I'm starting to lose confidence in him to like figure this thing out, because it's got to be quick and it's got to be now. And it sucks that he's had to deal with such bad injuries on top of it, but we'll see what happens. I'm not super optimistic at this point, but I'm going to keep cheering them on as much as I can and, hope for the best.
Yeah, what I would say is that when it comes to Kevin Kruger, I think he obviously knows basketball. Like he's very clearly knowledgeable about the game of basketball. I don't see him as a quick thinker on the sideline. Now, I'm not saying he's not thinking quickly. I'm not saying he's not making all those calculations, but I don't see him as a decisive decision maker. There's a big difference between somebody with knowledge, and obviously you'll get this too, and you probably already are getting this. But I make UNLV content online, and part of my thing is I'm very critical. Like I'm very critical. I was very critical of Barry Odom at the end of the Syracuse game with 3 timeouts in 24 seconds and not trying to go down and get a field goal. I've been unbelievably critical of Kevin Kruger. And both those guys know way more about these topics than I do. However, I'm not being paid anything. Neither of us are. None of us. I don't care to make this a full-time career. This is just a passion thing for me. And it's not just about knowledge. It's about decision making. I think Dave Rice knew X's and O's too. I think, you look what he's doing at Salt Lake Community College. He's recruiting well. He's playing well. The program would be way better off if we had just never fired Dave Rice at all. If he was still our head coach, I guarantee our program attendance-wise would be in a better place than it is right now. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't have fired him because obviously, he did some things wrong. But at least Dave Rice could build an identity of a team. High-flying athleticism, pretty good defense. When it comes to Kevin Kruger, my biggest issue with him this year, and with this roster specifically, is there aren't wing players. Jaden Henley is the only wing on the roster. Keelan Boone was critical to our success and our turnaround last year. The minute he came back, we became a whole new team. And wing play in sports is too important to only have a guy from a 2-28 DePaul team being your only wing on the roster. And so I don't think Dave Rice would have gone into a season with 0 wing players. In fact, we know he didn't because he never did. And so Kevin Kruger is missing something, but like you said, and like I said, like it's not over. He hasn't, the grave hasn't been completely dug on him yet. And I'm just hopeful that he can turn it around and that he can show something this year. With the injuries, we were probably always going to lose to, I think we should probably only have 2 losses. Pulling off that Memphis game or that Northwestern game, they were both kind of coin flip games. You would have liked to have won one of them. We were never beating that Mississippi State team in retrospect. But I got to see it now, Kevin. Like, now's the time. It's been too long. This is year 4. We're not waiting. Barry Odom turned around one of the 5 worst programs in college football in 2 years to have 40,000 people in attendance last year. Make the tournament. People will come to the Thomas and Mack. But you got to make it first. Nobody's going to come before you make it. And that's where I am at with this guy. And that's where I'm at with this team. I just don't have a ton of confidence, but you never know until it's over. And I hope that I'm wrong, because Kevin Kruger being a good coach was always the best outcome for this program.
Absolutely, because he was a hire that, while I admit I wasn't very excited about, I didn't want to bring an assistant coach. I knew that if he was successful, that was a really good thing. He was going to stay. He was going to be loyal to the program. He was going to bring that running rebel culture that we so desperately need. But I agree with you that seeing how bad things have been in the last decade, we would have been better off with Dave Rice. I don't know. I just think so. We made our turnaround last year, like you said, starting with Creighton. Getting Keelan Boone back was a massive part of that. And we did very well in conference. Okay. We had some really big wins, and I felt like we were just as good as anyone. Okay. Just based on how we looked in those games and some of the games we won. The problem is we had too many really, really bad losses. So, because it got me wondering, because we were, at one point it was looking like, oh man, maybe we can still get in that large bid because we're competing in one of the best the Mountain West has ever been. So I was like, okay, like, can we still get an at-large bid? Is like there any way, like, if we went out? And the answer to that question was no, because some of those losses we had were so bad. Southern and then Air Force at home, which I think might have been the worst loss in school history. You can't lose games like that. So, I mean, we don't have any of those losses yet. So until that happens, there's still hope. And as long as there's still hope, that gives us reason to, still get our butts to Thomas and Mack Center, even though there's only like 2,000 of us there, and cheer this team on till the last buzzer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going anywhere. I'm just a hoops junkie, and I love watching the Mountain West. I think it's a great conference, and I'm going to miss it when it's gone. I don't know if you were as ardent against staying in the Mountain West as I was. I thought it was a dumb decision to stay. I wish we would have gone and had home games against Gonzaga every year. I think that would have been nice. But it is what it is. You make the best of the situation that you're in. Will the Rebels turn it around? Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. Are they capable of it? If they're not healthy, they're not capable of it. I'll say that. If Rob Whaley's done for the year, it's going to be really tough. If Jaden Henley isn't back against Creighton, it's going to be really tough. And DJ Thomas is going to transfer. Kevin Kruger is going to get fired, and we're going to bring in a new guy. And that's just the way it is. And no Rebel fan I know will be mad at DJ Thomas leaving at the end of this year. He stayed another year when he didn't have to. He had 6-figure offers, more than that actually, from Houston and Florida. These schools are trying to get him from us. And so I don't think, and I imagine you agree, nobody's going to be mad at DJ no matter what. Everybody's happy with DJ, right?
Yeah, no, you could not blame him. I mean, he gets 4 years, right? And he's not a guaranteed that he's going to be an NBA player, right? So this could be the pinnacle of his. I mean, yeah, he'll definitely be good enough to be a pro. There's no doubt about that. But he wants to experience some success. He wants to experience the NCAA tournament. He wants to experience potentially making a run to the Final Four, and also getting a huge payday on top of that. So, of course, no one could blame him for leaving. I mean, if he was my son, I would be like, I totally get you. I get it. Take that money, go win somewhere.
Well, the only reason he's here is because he's the son of,
yes,
of a guy who played for us and who really, yes. His dad really wants this program to return and have DJ be the guy that can do it. And so, I mean, it's butthole clench time for Kevin Kruger, man. I mean, he's like, it really is like, and if he turns it around and becomes, if he makes it, all he's got to do is make the tournament. Nobody's even asking him to win a game in the tournament. All he's got to do is get there. And I would personally love it if the Rebels beat a team not named Air Force in the Mountain West Conference tournament, because it has been 11 years since the Rebels. It's 2013 is the last time we beat a team not named Air Force in our conference tournament. That's played in our home arena. So that's pretty bad. And I would love to see us make even a run to the Mountain West Conference championship game would be remarkable for me, and I'd be happy about that. But that's basically all I had planned for tonight. Ryan, do you have any other closing thoughts? Anything else? And where can people find your podcast? I know that you publish on a platform. I always click a link. It's not quite the same that I do it. So how do people find you?
So I'm on all the major platforms. It's just called the Rebellion Podcast. It's not a very clever name. The Rebellion was what our student section was. So I just called it that. But not associated with UNLV at all. But it's on any major podcast if you platform. So if you just search my name, Ryan Staker, Staker, or Rebellion Podcast, it should pop up. I have a really cool logo that I'm really proud of. And I drop like 1 or 2 episodes a week talking about not just UNLV sports. Sometimes I talk about other stuff. But yeah, any of you guys that could reach out and subscribe, comment, leave a review, whatever, I really appreciate it. So that's all.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, my little logo, I just used AI to make, and the Let's Run podcast, I got that from Dave Rice's first year when that was the year we beat North Carolina. And that was like the motto of the team. And so that's where I got mine from.
Yeah. I love the Let's Run motto. That was,
that was the peak, man. And then there was like the rerun for Vegas the next year with the Anthony Bennett year. Those were good times. Hopefully Kevin gets us back there this year. Not impossible. I mean, Rebel fans don't want to be sold all doom and gloom, even though if you listen to, I don't know if you've ever listened to the Burner Brigade podcast that we do, but those can be a little negative. So, all right, Ryan, thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate everybody listening. I hope you guys all have a wonderful week. The nerves before this Boise game are going to be real. So everybody spend some time with your family, pet a dog, do anything that'll de-stress you. because it's going to be a crazy night. I appreciate you guys, and let's run.